All right, we're ready when you are.
Thank you so much for having me, Mr. Mercedes, and thank you, students, for being available for this small chat, if you will, about identity and cultural competence. I feel that at my age, I've endured so much in regards to the biases that society places upon cultures that some of those things we grew up with. We learn this behavior, we learn this type of mentality. We're not born with it, and so but being able to understand what it is and how not to use it in a negative light, but instead embrace it overall within your community and the world globally, that's going to be very important and key for your success moving forward. A little bit about me. I've been in social services for about 17 years with a focus in homeless services, youth development, and workforce programs. At one point, I managed nonprofits of up to $1.5 million. At one point, I had up to 95 beds with 95 people, men, women, and children that were homeless. We fed them, we helped them find employment, we clothed them, we provided them health resources, and eventually housed them in apartments once they found a job. That's been my passion because I myself, at the age of 18, I was homeless for about 2.5 months between somewhere November to January, which is cold outside. I was sleeping on hallways. I was sleeping at friend's house. I did not have a place to go to, and it was very, very, very cold outside, and I was very, very, very hungry throughout that time. Just to give you a little recap or a little intro, I was raised mainly in Puerto Rico. I was born here when I was very little, right? But we left to Puerto Rico when I was just a baby, just been born, and I was raised over there. I went to school over there. I learned Spanish over there. I learned my culture over there, and we came back to Chicago in 1983. In 1983, we landed in Pilsen, which is predominantly a Mexican American neighborhood. And everything was new to me. Remember, I just came out of Puerto Rico, one culture, one people, and now I'm in the United States and I'm seeing African Americans, I'm seeing Caucasians, I'm seeing Mexicans, I'm seeing Hondurans, I'm seeing Chinese, I'm seeing all these other cultures that I've never been exposed to. And TV and media already imposes upon you a specific view of other cultures, right? We formulate specific identities for them. If they're this, they're this. If they're that, they're that. And we already learning this as we're growing up. But I must say that when I came from Puerto Rico, I was culture shocked. I was culture shocked because I was confronted with a new world of so many different type of people, and I did not know what to expect. And although I held on to our Mexican American community for guidance, there was still some variations that I had to acclimate to, right? The food is slightly different, the Spanish language slightly different. And in those times, it was all about gangs. So it just so happened that during that era, gangs were very prominent, and if you land in a neighborhood, you either become one of them or you run so they don't catch you until you leave out the neighborhood. Not to say that you don't that you're forced to join, because you really do not have to join. I, those of us that join because we were looking to align ourselves with something that was somewhat familiar. But if you already know, if you're already there, if you already know the vast immensity of our global community, you will not have joined, because you will say, that's stupid. How am I going to join this small group of people when I have to answer to society, which is millions of people? And so, but because I was trying to acclimate, I was trying to align myself with something somewhat recognizable, even though at times I was told, what are you doing here? Why are you not in Humboldt Park? And that's where all the Puerto Ricans were living at that time. So even receiving these racist, if you will, remark from a Spanish-speaking community member that we have some assimilations, we have some similar background, the Spanish culture and things, and the indigenous culture. It was a little bit alarming to me, but you know what? I rose above it, and there were those that did embrace me, and they did help me, and things like that. Unfortunately, I leaned over to that group, that gang that lived within 4 block radius, and that segregated me to that particular group, to that particular mindset, to that particular lifestyle. And I did myself a disservice because I should have been exposing myself to everything so that I could learn more, so that I could have a better idea of what was going on around me with all of these different cultures and why people say this and why people say that. Needless to say, my journey took me to the point where in 1990, I was present in a gang dispute in which a rival gang member was murdered by another person. And because I was there, I was found guilty as well. So I had to do 12 years and 9 months in prison for that. Going in there, I also had to face the fact that this is a whole totally different world too. Because you have to understand this, out here, we have segregation of communities, but we also have segregation of status, of either you're low class, middle class, or high class. And your possessions kind of define who you are in society. So now I am in an environment surrounded by people that are mostly from low income communities, mostly African Americans and a lot of Latinos, very few whites. That in itself can have an issue here in your head, because you say, so where is the equality? Why is there so many African Americans? Why is there so many Latinos? Where's the Chinese? Where's the Caucasians? Where's the Polish people? You know what I'm saying? So you really, and so you go into survival mode, right? Because now you have a predominant culture, and you know there's strength by numbers. So now you have a predominant culture, and because there's constant clashing, because of that mindset of segregation that we already went in there with, you develop even more resistance to collaborate with each other, to learn each other. You further the gap, and you continue to add to that segregation mentality. Mind you, prior to me going in there, I remember one time I was coming out of Benito Juarez, and a car screeched halt. A big white guy came out, put a gun on my friend's head, grabbed me and threw me against the fence, and he said, "You 3 Latinos are not gonna bust my windows anymore." Apparently, there were 3 Latinos in the area that did that, and because it was 3 of us, and we were Latinos, he assumed it was us. And so you immediately begin to start thinking about, well, I didn't do it. I wasn't there. I was at school. I just came out of school. Did we all look alike? Is that what you're saying? But no, that's not the case, because at that time, I really did not understand that we have a man that was frustrated because it just so happened that there was a lot of gang activity, or Latino gang activity in that area, and they were doing a lot of bad stuff. So this guy was fed up, and he just saw right there what he thought was the right thing, which is these 3 Latinos must have been the one to do that. I even go as far as telling you that where I lived on 62nd and Campbell, after I left out of Pilsen, I witnessed for the first time in my life KKK marches on Marquette Park in the south side of Chicago. An African-American, a friend of mine, came and told me that KKK was over there, and we ran over there. And that's the first time I saw a guy with a cone head and an all white, and police surrounding them, protecting them. And I didn't understand. I was so excited because that was my first time of seeing that. I'm like, oh, wow, the KKK. I was actually excited until my friend bumped me and said, hey, they kill Black people. And I'm like, what? I didn't get it. I didn't understand. And that was his perception. That's the bias that he grew up with. He grew up thinking and learning that that was the difference between these 2 cultures, when actually it's not. It's not the case. Moving forward, And during the isolation and segregation in prison, really allowed me to find myself and to really understand who I was as a person, and to really understand that there's no way in the world that anyone has any power over me, regardless of what culture they are. I want you to understand something. There's a difference between segregation and being unique, because segregation in general states that is setting yourself apart. Let me see, where was it that I had it right here? Okay, here it is. The action or state of setting someone or something apart from other people or things, or being set apart. It also means when, like in Chicago, we segregated, some cultures are on this side, some cultures are on that side. But just because you are apart doesn't mean that you need to be segregated. When you set yourself apart from other people, doesn't mean that you're setting yourself apart by your culture. It means that you're setting yourself apart by your uniqueness, by your capabilities, by your niche, if you will, that which you are the best at, and that you should capitalize on. That's what you should be focusing on, how unique you are. Mind you, there's uniqueness in every individual out there. They either know it or don't know it. Those that know it, they're very successful. Those that don't know it go through life trying to figure out what is that. Some of them don't even know that they have a niche, right? So when I came out, I said to myself, I'm no longer going to allow this mentality of segregation to rule over me, but instead I'm going to begin to start using my talents and my skills and what I've learned to really embark in a life filled with loving my next door neighbor, with understanding and not judging people, and focusing on building my uniqueness. And so that's how I entered into the field of social services. I felt like I needed to give back. I felt like regardless of what color you were, you must be going through some changes, and somebody has to be there to help you. And if it's not me, who's going to do it? So I began a mission to not only empower myself, but to build myself educationally. I went to school in there and got 2 associate degrees. I came out and went and got my bachelor's in psychology. Then I went for my master's in training and development. And that in itself is a factor, one of the factors as to how I made it so far and how successful I am as a professional individual out here. I also started focusing, as I'm focusing on giving back, I'm understanding the importance of, there's avenues to giving back, and one of them is through volunteering. So I began volunteering, but not only that, I began involving my 2 sons in volunteering efforts so that they can start learning from early on in their youth years. What does it mean to give without expecting anything in return? Number 1. And number 2, how does this help you in the future in the eyes of other people that may have resources for you? And this is important, but not to be mistaken. It's important because when employers or people that you meet out here know that you volunteer, they see you differently. They see a heart. They see that you have compassion. They see that you care. And people gravitate to that, right? Because we got so much going on in our society. We want to look for people that care, that are good people, that are sending positive energy out there. And if you volunteer, you must care. Because in some people's eyes, they're like, volunteer? Where? How do I jump in? I got to jump in the car. I got to go over there, and then I got to come back, and that's just too much. And I just not gonna, volunteering is such a rewarding experience. And again, it helps you so much in life where you're an example to other people. You're an example to your family, and you influence other people to care as well. And that's very important because we have to try to teach people or help people realize that they do care. They just don't know how to trigger that inner mechanism. And that inner mechanism is triggered by action. And action is triggered by just going and doing it. No put excuses. Don't put obstacles in front of you. If you really want to do something, you could do it. I remember that for a long time, I wanted to write a book, and I started writing a book, and I kept writing a book, and I get on and off and on and off, and I still haven't finished that particular book, mind you, my own personal book. But because of my networking and my volunteerism and my exposure to professional life and things like that, an opportunity came where I became a co-author of a book. So I actually did write. I am in a book. Who can say that? Who can say that for the rest of your life, there's a book out there that has your story in it? That's forever. That's not going to go away. You just imprinted yourself in the world. And that's an amazing experience. I also learned that because I'm no longer biased against anybody and everybody is equal, I also understand that my giving has to go further by me mentoring other people. But there's a saying out there that says that before you're a leader, you must follow. And that doesn't say that you have to be a follower on the streets. What that means is that you have to pick the right mentor in your life, the right mentor with the right mindset that wants to help you think things through, to help you decipher specific emotions and thought processes that you're going through. Because when you get input from outside of your circle, now you have new information you never had before. And having more information helps you make better decisions. If I would have known that being in that corner, when that happened, would have got me all those years in prison, I would not have been in that corner. Who wants to go to prison? I had to learn the hard way. But I learned and I learned well. That's for sure. So you find a mentor or mentors that can guide you in the right way. And you begin practicing that back out by being a mentor yourself with your sibling, with your cousins, with even your friends. Be that positive influence, be that positive guidance and direction for them. Because again, we don't know what other people are going through. You know, we see a homeless person and we don't know how that homeless person got there. All we say is, I want to walk the street. I want to walk across the street. I don't even want to be by this person, this and that. But we don't know the sad stories, the many sad stories that are out there and the things that people have gone through. And they're not necessarily bad people. The people that ran across the situation and they did not have the mental capacity, the developmental capacity to deal with it. It could have been a death of a loved one. It could have been unemployment. In a lot of cases, it's some sort of mental health deficiency. I don't like saying mental health illness because illness it prescribes to you being sick, and I don't think that you're being sick. Is that there's an imbalance of chemicals in your brain, and that's why there is therapy and medication to balance that out so that you are able to operate better. And those imbalances come from through your development as you're growing up. You face certain experiences, you face certain decisions, and sometimes you don't get the experience that you need for your brain to process that specific information in that specific part of your brain. And so it becomes deficient of that chemical there. And so there's an imbalance. You got a lot of chemical here and very little here. And so we got to try to work the brain out to see if we can balance that out. So we cannot judge people. We cannot judge them. We cannot judge people because they went to jail. We don't know what happened. There's a lot of people out there who went through sexual abuse. They went through abuse, physical abuse. They were homeless since they were 3 in a shelter system, foster home. We don't know. So we cannot judge. And it don't matter what color you are. because there's homeless white people, black people, Puerto Rican people, Mexican people, Chinese people, all kinds of people homeless. There's homeless everywhere in the world. There's homeless in Pakistan. There's homelessness in Yugoslavia. There's homelessness in China. There's homelessness everywhere. It's a global issue because of housing. But I digress a little. It's very important that you understand that as you start welcoming your world, you start welcoming your, and you start understanding what your power is. And by you understanding what your power is, you understand how you are an influencer in some capacity. People are listening to you. Other kids are listening to you. Adults are listening to you. And what you put out there into the universe when you speak only describes who you are as a person. There's a saying out there that says that sometimes it's better to be silent than to speak. Silence is the best answer to a question. Because we always tell somebody something about ourselves when we talk. I learned that very early on. And people gravitate to me to talk about their problems. So I get to really practice understanding where they're coming from and really looking in between the words and the phrases to understand what other issues may be there. Why are they where they at, and how can I help them? Ultimately, becoming involved in your community as an influencer, you're going to be able to have a voice in implementing positive social change out there. So remember, remove the biases. Embrace everyone as equal. We don't know what they're going through. And become involved by giving and letting people provide you with information so that you could be a well-rounded, successful adult when you get to that point. Now I want to open it for questions, if I may.
We'll give you a moment to think about it.
Okay, that's fine. I understand this is the honor roll. I'm expecting some very intellectual questions here.
Don't be shy, kids. It's there's no bad questions. So
No, there's not. And I'm just like you. I'm a human being, just like you're a human being. Just like you would talk to your friend. Ask me anything.
So, if you, so I'm not completely caught. Okay, sorry, I need to process what I'm trying to say. So, why were you surprised about the KKK? I mean, they were violent. Was it just because, I mean, you said you were younger and you didn't know what it really was? It was cool. But, like, why was something like that violent kind of surprising you in a way? I mean, I don't know if I asked my question properly.
It's fine. Remember that I grew up in Puerto Rico. There's no such thing as KKK in Puerto Rico. In Puerto Rico, whether you're black, you're light-skinned, dark-skinned, medium-skinned, whatever color eyes you have, whatever color or hair you got, everybody's the same. Everybody's Puerto Rican, right? So I never been exposed to that. So this was the first time in my life that I saw this in front of me, and with no explanation prior as to where this came from and what has happened. So my initial reaction was one, like if you would have gone to the circus and you saw an elephant come out and did some tricks and things. That was my initial reaction until that person that was with me told me, hey, wait, let me give you some backstory on this. And then I was like, oh, wow, that happens here? I wasn't aware.
was it like it was kind of, to me, I kind of think of it as like a parade. Like you walk by and there's all these people here that you have cops like escorting them. So to someone who wasn't informed about it, they kind of seem like important people.
Right.
You know? And so not knowing that,
right.
you know, that must have been a shock. Interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. So Gabby asked, how do your kids feel about volunteering and giving back?
My kids, my oldest boy right now, 18 years old, just got a job at Starbucks after he graduated, and his resume had all of the volunteer experiences that we did together, from feeding the homeless in holiday season, to walking with Ceasefire, to talk about against violence, to going to universities and doing pathway to college trainings with high school students. So that experience has given them such a bigger view of what's happening in society, and they are very grateful about it. And because of it, they build a resume. They started building their resume at the age of 7, 8 years old. So they already have something to be able to help them find employment.
Okay, thank you. Philip asked, when you said that silence is the best answer, what did you mean by that?
I mean that there's a lot of ignorant people out there. Some of them may even come at you and try to either disrespect you or call out your culture in some way. And the best way to deal with something like that is you just stay silent. If you lower your bar to the level of that person and you try to defend yourself, your culture, through words, of course, right? So what happens is you're no different than he or she is. You become as racist or bigotry as that person is. So what people say doesn't matter. What they think doesn't matter. What only matters is how you react to things. That's what matters, because your reaction is going to have a direct impact on you. Not what they say, but what you do. That's why I say silence sometimes is better than speaking.
Thank you for that perspective. I think that's interesting. Marisol asked, when you came back from Puerto Rico, were you judged because you were used to different things?
Yes, of course I was judged. I was judged because I didn't know English. So I was judged because I dressed differently. I was judged even by my own in the north side because I was living in the south side. So sometimes you cannot please everybody. Most times you're not going to be able to please everybody. So don't go out there trying to please anybody. Yourself is what matters. Live for yourself, for your persona. Don't worry about nobody else.
Thank you. Okay, now Gabby asked, how were you able to adapt to the new culture when you first arrived here?
It was very hard because, again, I hardly any English whatsoever. So I had to stick with the Spanish speaking population at first. But at the same time, I had to learn English. So they put me in a bilingual program and I was trying to learn English, but I'm gonna tell you something, from 83 to 90, in 1990, I still did not have full I did not know English very well. I learned English when I started going to college in prison. That's when I started really learning English.
My question, I have two questions. So you went through, it seems like you went through this transformation when you were locked up, and the catalyst, something that inspired that transformation was your education. So what forced you to do that? Like, when did you come to that kind of understanding or realization? And then you mentioned networking. What is networking, and how can some of my students start to network?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, so for the first question, it's three things that led me to it. Number one, before I got locked up, I had just finished high school and I knew I needed to go to college, but I did not know how to get there. We never had anybody like me talking to kids like you about ways to go to college and things like that, like we have a lot now. So I never knew that. I didn't have the help in school to help me understand financial aid and applying and all that stuff. I didn't know. So I knew I needed to go, but I didn't know. Number two, when I went in there, I was told you either go to school or you work. you're not going to be laying around doing nothing. So you don't have no choice. You either work or go to school. Number three, it just so happened that a person of high power that we were with was going to school. So I figure in order for me to be safe, let me just go ahead and enroll in school and go with him so that I'm safe and I'm going to school at the same time. And then as soon as I got in there, it just drove me, eating all that information just made me more hungry, and I just kept going and going and going. And for the whole 12 years, without the little spaces of when they would lock it down, I was going to school. I was learning something. I was either taking tutoring classes, helping people with their GED. I was learning paralegal. I was going for my associate of applied science, applied of arts, and all that. So computer, everything. What was the second question? I'm sorry.
Networking.
Networking. Okay. When you're volunteering, you're meeting people. That's networking. When you're involved in a community activity that has a positive impact, that's networking. Every time you go meet, when you go to a college fair, that's networking. The way you network is when you are involved in a group setting where you have access to people to talk, to get to know. You get their business cards, perhaps, you know, we adults, we have coffee, we go have coffee, we learn about each other, what our likes, our dislikes are, and we try to come together with one common mission to is power in numbers. So the more people you bring together, the more you can carry that positive mission forward in society. So networking is about being in a place with access to other people who are positive, who are good, who have resources that you can connect with, learn from, and perhaps in the future have a door open for you to be able to be a CEO of a big corporation.
Wonderful. Yeah. So that's like so volunteering is one form of networking, which can lead to a mentor or even better.
Absolutely.
Right? Like you said, opportunities, scholarships, job opportunities, all that kind of stuff. So, and I know you, I mean, you know, a big part of that is using LinkedIn, right? Like the professional networking site.
That's right.
So maybe that's something that we'll eventually do here, students, get you started on your LinkedIn profile, you know, because you got Facebook profiles and Instagrams and Snapchats and TikToks.
Right.
The LinkedIn is where you can network and reach out and make those connections with other people. I think a lot of you with your Genius Hour projects, you should get a LinkedIn profile and say, you know what, this is what I'm doing for my project, and see if there's any people out there on social media. There's a lot of positive people that can serve as mentors. I mean, they're not in front of you physically, but they're still providing that perspective, right?
Fun fact, I just got a guy from India connected with me, wants me to be a part of a major conference, 2020 conference, virtual conference of life coaches. And it's called 20 Questions for 2020. So each one of us is going to do a presentation on a specific topic, and this is going to be a global event where everybody's going to have access to it.
Very cool. That's awesome. Okay, we got two more questions, and then because I know we're out of time. I know these kids, when they want to go enjoy the day out there. I appreciate you waiting. Is your name Israel part of? Is that related to Judaism in any way or no?
No, it just so happened that in my culture, we are mostly Catholics, and because we're Catholics, we oftentimes name our kids after Bible names out of the Bible. And so my mom named my older brother Ishmael, who was a king, Israel, which is one who struggles with God, and my younger brother is Gabriel, as in the angel.
Wonderful. Marisol's question: what made you know that you wanted to help people as a job or a career?
I've always wanted to help people. That's how my family, it's in our genes to help people. And when I saw that I could do this and get paid at the same time, why not, right? Help and get paid.
Wonderful. Awesome. Okay.